Again.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody.
How are we getting on, lads?
Not too
Today
bad.
we have a very special guest. So how about you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi. My name's Stephen Hunter, and I was in The Hobbit. I played Bombur. I didn't actually talk in that, so you wouldn't recognise my voice. I said nothing. Apart from the extended edition of the Battle of Five Armies, I had 2 lines. I actually learnt the Northern Irish accent for like 6 or 7 weeks, and then they took all my lines away from me. So, yeah.
Wow.
But it was, but I was in all 3 movies, and I was the big ginger bugger, so you couldn't miss me.
Thomas, can you pull up a picture there? Yeah, the Northern Irish accent is amazing. It's just I've done it before. Dordle, dordle, dordle.
Anytime I think of the Northern Irish accent, it was like it was like 2 troll dolls back in like 2010, and like the whole meme with them was just like they're like situation.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, the accent was actually it wasn't like a real hard Belfast accent. It was basically Jimmy Nesbitt, because Jimmy has one accent, which is his own, and he's from Ballymena, which is Coleraine up in Northern Ireland. So he's very country. So Northern Irish. So basically, we just had to match him, and I auditioned in Scottish to start with, and then when I came over for my first wardrobe fitting, I met Philippa Boyens, one of the producers. She goes, "How's your Irish accent?" I said, "Oh yeah, it's all right. I mean, you always say that, you know." And then so basically we learnt, we spent just so many sessions learning all about it. But the best tuition I got was from Jimmy's youngest daughter, Mary, and she just said it's ho no Brian Co, and that was like, oh okay, and I just did that, and then we're away, and it's like a, the Northern Irish is like a big upward, because if you say mouth, it's like mouth, like that.
Wow.
And then mouth, and then but then for the Southern, it's the others, because I actually did an Irish in a short film called Messiah. It was a Weinstein produced short film a few years ago, and it's completely the opposite. And it's like mouth, so it's like under, whereas the Northern Irish is over. Anyway, that's how I worked it. And before I did Messiah, I went back to my dialect coach who was working on The Hobbit, and she said, just forget everything we taught you about Northern Irish if you're going to do, Southern Irish. So, we did that. And it was all right. Like there was a couple of English girls who came to a preview, or it was at a film festival in Melbourne. It's at Kilda, and they actually thought I was Irish. So I thought, oh, that's good. If I managed to fool them, then maybe it wasn't as shit as I thought it was.
Yeah, that's
Just with Bombur, and how long would it have taken you to put on all that makeup and the beard and everything for every take you took?
You guys look very different from each other.
Yeah, well, that was the whole plan. He wanted to make each character memorable, and I originally had lines to start with, but he wanted to give me a whole lot of physical gags, and then I lost a few lines. But otherwise, you're fighting with 6 or 7 lines with all the other guys. But I had some really good iconic physical moments. But like the prosthetics, I had like 5 pieces. There was a big face piece. It was all silicon face piece, and then there was the big bald spot on the top, then the chin. So that took, to start with, about 2.5 hours. And I was the only one. I had 2 prosthetic artists working on me. And then we'd all go have breakfast. So we'd be in our we wouldn't even have fat set. We'd have these Under Armour, these, skins or, Under Armour things on, our big dressing gowns, Ugg boots, and these massive just silicon heads without hair. And we'd rock on after breakfast and eat. And then we'd come back, have our coffee, have a dump, and then get our hair put on. So that was pretty much the way it all worked. And hair was probably about 40 to 45 minutes. And then the costume, we sort of got dressed in steps along the way. And the fat suits were actually they were individual bits of muscle. You had like 2 ass cheeks, and I had the quads and the calves and the arms, and they were connected by big thick strips of elastic that were buttoned, so you could take them off individually, and then that way they could move. So you had all these individual pieces, and I had these great man boobs. We called them the moobs, And sometimes I'd go to lunch and I'd take my big tummy off and leave the boobs on, just to sort of, rock into lunch, which was pretty cool. Made me feel like a lady.
Wow.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Nice. That's nice. I like your style. So,
Sounds like a lot of fun.
you seriously, you were in all three of them, and you never got a line.
Well,
No. Well, I'm in the first script. I remember we had a read through and I had some lines, something about cooking or needs salt or some bloody thing. And then they came back and said, look, we're thinking of making him a physical character, And he said, if you choose to do that, then Pete will start to design some physical gags, which I'm glad I did because I think he was more memorable, that way. And the line I got was in the last, at the end of the last movie, and it only played in the special features. But I was kind of disappointed. I was quite happy not having lines in the end, because people got the character without me actually saying anything, which is, it's quite a challenge as an actor, and it's, I think worked out better. And he's so big. The thing is, you don't have to do much with him. Some of the guys were, trying to make themselves known on camera and shit, but it's like with him, he's just massive. He walks in the room and he's just a unit. So the design does everything, and I just have to do as little as possible. We'll just keep, just play it down a little bit.
It sounds like such an ideal acting job. Just put on a fat suit and Sherlock, do your best.
Yeah, I mean, and it was fun, and because all of us were just getting to know each other, and it was just such a laugh constantly on set, because there'd always be time between setups, and we had these big tents that they cooled off, and we wore these big cool vests underneath the, and then they plugged an ice water into it like the racing car drivers use. Otherwise we literally would have overheated. And we spent a lot of time in the trailer park, like, we had we had our own trailers in this area sort of outside the studios, and just drank coffee, chewed the fat, played a lot of FIFA. So that was pretty much what we did.
Wow.
It's handy.
Pretty cool, man. I think one of my favorite scenes, definitely from The Hobbit, and you were in a lot of them, is the first one is in the Distillation of Smog, when it's the barrel roll scene, which you were notoriously famous for. Do you know the one where that scene is so, it's just so funny, and jeez. And then there's the one where you outrun all the hobbits when you're running from, I can't think of his name, the big
Bayon.
Yep, perfect. Bayon.
The big bear.
You don't even need lines. You're just you're such a recognizable character that it's impossible not to know who you are in the film, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I saw the previs, and instead of storyboard, they do previs, which is just like quite basic sort of animation, so they can work out how the scene's going to go. And I saw the previs to that barrel scene quite early on. When we were sort of, I guess, filming just the first movie, really. And Pete really loved it, so he decided he wanted that in there. And then I'm at the start. I think there's a look on my face where it's me, and we filmed some of it in this huge warehouse, this old army building out in Trentham, out by the racecourse in Wellington. And it was like a big go-kart track, and it just bloody, it had these two V8 engines on either side, and it just sort of pushed the water around in this big circle. And they changed the sets on us, and they just did a lot of close-ups, and there was a gate there and all kinds of stuff. So you could sort of see me in that. And then at the very end, where they pull me, where I jump in the barrel and I'm in the water, and I think Dwalin and Norrie pull me out of the water, and that was on like a green screen rig. It was like and I had my head in a bucket, and they lifted me up. That was on green screen, but the rest of it is digital. Like, the rest of it isn't me at all. Everyone goes, "What's it like?" I said, "Well, I don't know. That was my digital double." But the running scene, as an actor, you've just got to be prepared for whatever they're going to throw at you. And I saw that in the scene. I thought, well, I'm going to be running. No one says, "Oh, look, you're going to be running in 4 days. Make sure you do your stretches or warm-ups or whatever." I mean, they trained us pretty hard for 6 or 7 weeks anyway, with all the stunties. So we were pretty fit. But I saw that and I thought, shit, okay, well, we should go for a walk and maybe walk off a little hangover, because we're all staying on location. So, and then we turn up on the day, and Pete's just like, we'd already done something running down the hill. And he goes, "This is a scene where Bombur runs, from Bayon." And he's on his microphone, the voice of God, we call it. And he was like, okay, you guys, so you're running from Bayonne, and he's this big bear thing, and he'll probably eat you if he catches you. So it's life and death. He said, but don't dawdle. I want you to go as fast as you can. If you try and run too slow, we'll notice. So you really want to go at a good clip. So go as fast as you can, and Stephen, you just run faster. Action. And that was it. And luckily, before we shot it, these guys were on a buggy. They had the camera on this sort of buggy beside us, and I asked them if they could see my feet, and they said no, they couldn't. So I got the makeup crew, the wardrobe crew, to go and grab my runners, and because if I didn't have those, if I had those big boots, I would have been stuffed.
Wow.
So yeah, and everyone was like, "Oh, this fat prick's not going to run very fast," Nah, there's no way, And so the look on their faces is probably quite natural. I just steamed it. I did 3 takes. And it worked. But it's one of those moments as an actor, if you're not prepared for that, if you don't look ahead and prepare yourself, it might not have made the film, or they might have done it a different way, or they could have used a stunt guy and you wouldn't have featured as much. So yeah, it was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of my favorites.
That's pretty cool.
Sounds fun anyway, yeah. I'd like to see the clip though where you can actually see your feet and you just see him wearing runners.
Yeah, that'd be funny. I could be an ambassador for Nike or something.
Exactly.
I actually
Any
have
other moments like that? No.
What's that?
I said, do you have any other moments like that?
Oh, like there's heaps. There's it was a lot of practical jokes. Like Martin Freeman is funny. Like he's a funny guy, and and there'd be a couple of guys we'd tease like all the time, and like with practical jokes and stuff like that. If someone really doesn't like it and they get upset and they take it personally, and they really start getting really wound up about it, then that's when you ramp it up, and the other guys you target, right? Because we're all mates, and one of the guys was Mark Hadlow, and everyone used to take the piss out of him all the time, and particularly Pete Jackson is probably one of the biggest practical jokers. And when we were in the Goblin Caves, there was a little fellow called Kieran Shah, and Kieran was he was the scale double for Frodo in Lord of the Rings, and then he was scale double and then a lot of stuff in the Hobbit as well. I think it might have been Bilbo's scale double as well. And he was in this prosthetics and makeup as a goblin. And so during the goblin scene, and there was a big fight scene, Pete sent him out specifically just to go and hump Mark Hadlow's leg. And that's what he was doing. And Mark was trying to shake this thing up like a little dog, like having a go at his leg. So, that sort of stuff just happened all the time. Or Dean O'Gorman is another Kiwi guy, mate of mine, and Aidan Turner. They played Feely and Keely. Like they were like the Dylan and Brandon of Middle Earth, or I think Jimmy called them the Ant and Dec of Middle Earth. These guys, they were all the cool ones. And Bill Kircher, he was pretty crazy. Bill, he is pretty crazy, and he had this hammer, and this was in Battle of Five Armies, and we were getting our armor ready to go to battle, and he had this hammer and he was whacking this helmet, and of course just before the take, Dean and Aidan would steal it and just take it, and then he'd be looking around for his prop, and in the end he just used to fist punch it and stuff like that. So look, it was just like school, really, like the whole shoot and offset, just lots of dick and fart jokes, and yeah, that was pretty much how it rolled most of the time. Yeah, pretty funny.
I've kind of a fun thing to do here. Do you think you'd be able to name all the 13 dwarves?
Yeah, Biffa, Bofa, Bombur, Ori, Dori, Nori, Oin, Gloin, Balin, Dwalin, Thorin, Feely, Keely.
Fucking hell, right? Fair fucks to you.
We got asked all these questions on when we went to London for the premiere, and they asked all these types of questions, and shit, there were some funny answers. I think Adam Brown got asked what's the name of what's the name of Gandalf's sword?
All right.
Is it Gandalf? Or yeah, and it's Glamdring, right? And he says Galadriel.
Oh.
So yeah.
Wow.
So and Aidan had no idea. I don't think Aidan ever read the books.
No, there's only one book actually.
Yeah. Well, I read the book. Well, the book or the scripts either. I don't think he read the scripts.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah. You'd think there'd be more than one books with 3 movies, but yeah.
It's mad. Yeah, I don't think the Battle of the Five Armies was even in the book at all.
Look, it was. It was, and yeah, there's a chapter called the Battle of the Five Armies. But what it does, it goes, a battle ensued, and it's very easy to write that in a book. But when you have to actually transcribe it onto the movies, it takes ages. Or there was another one, like Gandalf pissed off somewhere to do something, and that's when he went to Dol Guldur. So yeah. So you had all that shit that you had to sort of put in the movie. And the other thing is he wrote like 125 pages of appendices when he wrote Lord of the Rings as well. And so there's all that kind of stuff that I guess covers that whole time. He was going to rewrite The Hobbit. He was going to turn it a little bit darker, I think, more into the flavour of Lord of the Rings, I think, before he died, but he never got around to it. Yeah.
Wow.
I heard that from Stephen Colbert, who's like the biggest Tolkien nerd in the world.
Is he? Wow.
Yeah, totally.
Well, yeah. No, Tolkien was an extremely good author, and he made some of the best. Made 2 of the best trilogies ever. I think definitely.
No.
No, Jay, we're talking about. I can't hear you. What you say?
Did you see the film Tolkien?
No, I haven't seen the film.
I haven't seen it either, but I remember when the trailer came out, it looked really good because he fought in World War One, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Battle of the Somme, yeah.
Yeah, and that was inspiration for all
Rains
all
or
the
what?
other stuff. Yeah, the good and the evil and all that kind of stuff.
No, yeah, he's. Yeah, no, definitely, he's one of my favorite authors ever. I stand by that,
Yeah.
It's him. And then Peter Jackson, he did a really, really good job directing these films, and didn't he play like 1 or 2 parts in them? He was like a.
He's got a part in every film he does, and it's usually the biggest, cheesiest, on the nose sort of character or part in it. But that's how he plays it. And when he gives you direction, he just acts it out. And I remember when we first started, he was sort of acting out how we wanted Bilbo to go, and Martin was like, "Does he want me to do that?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe, but just do it your own way." That's the way he does it. But I thought Lord of the Rings was astounding. I remember when I saw it, and I read the book. I mean, it took me about a year and a half because I'm a pretty slow reader. But it was just as I imagined it. It was quite fascinating, and it was watching the special features of the Hobbit. Lord of the Rings, where I was like, shit, I'd really like to do that. It looked like such a great time. I know it was pretty hard work. But yeah, so that's sort of what got me inspired. And then the Hobbit came up, and I was like, righto, let's give this a crack.
100%. Yeah, sure. Look, man. Now you're like, it's fucking awesome. Yeah. It is, man. It is very cool. Well, awesome.
So I'm just reading something. Give me a second.
Man. Jesus, Jared.
Okay, cool.
Sky.
So yeah, I also seen you in what you call it again? Whistleblower.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of a blink and you might miss a thing, but
yeah,
added some comedic value. So could you tell us a little bit about being on set for that and some crack about that?
Yeah, that was crazy. That was a Chinese production, and Chinese productions have just got money to burn. Like, they really do. The budgets are crazy. I think I worked 2 days on that, and I for the life of me, I can't see how, it's really justified having 2 days, but it did. And I think they just wanted, I found out when I got on set, they just wanted some sort of comedic value, and I was this reporter, this hidden truth news reporter, and something was going on at this dude's house, and the gag was that I had to quickly rally my camera guy, just to get at the front of the line, to get footage of this guy coming out of his house, and I was sort of like juggling a donut. They always give the fat guys food. It's just funnier, So that's kind of how that came about. And yeah, I worked 2 days and had 2 or 3 days staying in a nice place in Melbourne. And the family came up in the weekend. We were due to go to Melbourne on the weekend anyway, and this came up, so I arrived a bit earlier. So look, that was fun. It was also a Chinese director who had an assistant who translated for us because she didn't speak English. But the first AD who basically runs the set, he was bilingual. So yeah, that was good fun. It was pretty simple shoot. Didn't really have much to do, but you get those jobs every now and then. I've just finished a film. It was one of the only 2 productions that was filming during lockdown. In Australia, it was another adaptation of Stephen King's Children of the Corn, and it was produced by a guy called Lucas Foster, who last year produced Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh.
And the director's a guy called Kurt Wimmer, he wrote the original Point Break, and also he's written things like Law Abiding Citizen and the like. So he's the director. So we went out and we basically isolated ourselves just out of Sydney, and then went to a little place called Mudgee to do another 10 days. So that's due out next year. So yeah, that's been.
I didn't know they were doing about their Children of the Corn.
Yeah. There's
Can't wait for
84. There was one in 84, which I haven't seen, and there was another one in 2008, which apparently was a bit shit house. But we'll see. I mean, it's it was incredible that they just managed to do it. With the current lockdowns, and I'm about to go just out of town in about 3 weeks to start another feature film. Production started over here now. Like Neighbours has started, Home and Away started. All those shows are underway.
Nothing's started here.
It's all
wait and see.
Yeah,
It's no fun.
well, it'd be tough for all the just all the crews and all the associated businesses. Actually, I think Jimmy I know Jimmy Nesbitt. He bought a whole lot of like the trucks. The trucks that they have the makeup and the wardrobe and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think he bought into one of those companies. They might have been doing stuff for Game of Thrones and stuff, I think. But yeah, that'd be tough. Because I think are they doing the Game of Thrones prequel?
They're supposed to be shooting, what's it called? It's going to be called Westeros, is it? It's going to be about the Targaryens, isn't it?
I thought it was the one with the Targaryens.
Yeah,
I
but
think they shoot that in Limerick.
Something
Ireland's big
higher.
studios there.
I don't know what
Keeping
the
up
name
with the Targaryens.
Oh, wow. Could you imagine? Can't believe you killed that dragon without me. It's going to be like a massive... I don't know what the name of the show is going to be. I did hear about it, though, that they were going to make something about it.
Yeah, I know it's I know it's based on the Targaryens and it has fire in the title somewhere. That's all I know.
Yeah. You can imagine that like a reality show, all these like annoying sort of 19-year-old Targaryens like TikToking and shit like that.
Oh.
You haven't made the move to TikTok yet, have you?
Oh, look, I did. Someone told me about it, and they said, you should go on TikTok. And I did it for a little while. But then everything that was coming up was just these 14-year-old girls doing this. And I was like, nah, I'm over 50. I was like, nah, I'm too old for this shit. I'm not going to, I'm going to back slowly away from this. It's just
the lads are 18, I'm 19, and I feel really weird when I'm on it as well.
Yeah.
I don't touch the stuff.
Yeah, the only reason I go on it is to get like fucking memes and shit to send the boys.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
It's definitely a young person's thing, and I'm definitely not a young person. So I still do my Instagram and Twitter and the old Fachi book and stuff like that. But apart from that,
Fachi book. Nice. Did you get recognised for your character very often, or for your characters very often?
Oh, like every now and then, like in Sydney. The thing is with these guys, because we're in prosthetics, no one who doesn't know the films or is a big fan knows who you are.
Huge fans would know who you are.
They definitely do. And like every now and then I'll be like getting on a plane to go to a job, and I'll be at Sydney Airport, or I'll be hopping off the train at a station, and there'll be one dude that'll come up and go, "Oh, Stephen, can I get a selfie?" And they'll get but that'll happen like once every few months, because they're really into it. I do, like I've got a Patreon. I've got a couple of Patreon pages, and one of them is I started with, I was going to do content and, podcasts and skits and stuff like that, but I ended up just turning it into a pure fan page, and I got about, sort of 30 odd people there, and I just do these like Zoom calls and. Cool. Especially now because, we used to do conventions all the time, and I've buttoned off doing it. It's just too much time away for not a massive return, and it takes away from the momentum of doing acting work in Sydney. So I wasn't really doing them anyway, but especially right now. And it's a good way to, just to try and, what do people get when they go to those conventions, and it's trying to sort of replicate it with an online sort of Patreon thing. And I just keep adjusting it, but that's been pretty good. And I got another one called the Actors Coach, so because I do a lot of teaching, and obviously there's not a lot of face-to-face teaching at the moment, although I'm just about to start. So yeah, there's all that kind of palaver.
Any advice to people who are starting acting? Because I had the two lads acting earlier, and we could do with some advice.
Yeah, look, a lot of it's just about just really having fun. I mean, it's the hardest thing in the world because people say don't act, just be yourself. But the process of like getting to the point where you're just so natural and being yourself, it takes a long time. I've got mates so they go, I've got some good advice as an acting coach. Just tell them to talk as you do normal people. But it's not that simple, Like I always like to try and find a way to personalize something. Like for example, I did a film a couple of years ago called The Merger, and I was a publican, and I was like a secretary of the local AFL club, and I was almost like self-appointed assistant coach. And people are like, oh, did you study AFL? Are you into that? And I go, no, I just pretended I was coaching the All Blacks, And then someone else I did another film. I did Wolf Creek Series 2, played a character called Richie, and he was addicted to bloody trucks and all kinds of stuff. And people go, oh, do you research trucks? And I'm like, I don't give a shit about trucks. Well, it doesn't fizz me up. Really, like as a person, I'm not a petrol head. That doesn't. So I had to try and think of something that did fizz me up. So when I was talking about it, like the text is really just a vehicle, and you got to try and personalize it somehow. But like to start with, it's really just you just have fun, and you just got to enjoy the whole journey of it, and just just try things and fall on your ass. And I think if people really want to be actors, just keep going, keep trying to learn stuff, even if it's little bits at a time. Just and just keep going, because persistence is the biggest thing. I know a lot of people who are more hardworking and more talented than me that have just given it away. I've just kept going. I've just kept plodding away, and if you do that and you keep learning and you keep practicing, you're just going to get better. It's just how things work with anything, really.
Mm.
Of course not.
No, that's really good advice.
Yeah, I think I did fairly well now for someone who had 2
Zero.
lines and was pretty much the Irish equivalent of the creature from the Black Lagoon. Like,
Yeah.
I did 2 lines for "What are you doing in me bog," which is pretty much "What are you doing in my swamp?" And then at the end, I pick up the camera and go, "How the fuck do you turn this thing off?"
Yeah, we tried to make you out into like some kind of Sasquatchy cryptidy thing.
It was like a found footage thing where you can see me like under the bridge in the background, and then I emerge from a lake.
It was great.
Yeah,
it's great fun.
Look, I think you find your niche too. Like I like the real downplayed sort of almost sort of documentary sort of style. On my YouTube page, I've got a few sketches that I've done, and there's all these. I did one called Cambo. And basically my mother-in-law gave me this camouflage onesie that was just a little bit too tight. And I just pretended I was this guy who thought he was invisible. And he obviously wasn't. And it was called Cambo.
That's amazing.
It was called Cambo. It's called Cambo. Cool. Cambo, the danger is unseen. And I just used to go around and just try and hide from shit. And people could obviously see me. And there was another one. She gave me this like really cheap-ass like ancient Egyptian costume, and I just turned myself into Horus, and just pretended to ring up to try and ask for a mortgage, and just played it really deadpan straight. And that's sometimes I don't know, to me I find that really funny when you've got like the comic gap is obviously someone is looks ridiculous, but they just kind of play it straight, and that kind of stuff always appeals to me. I guess in New Zealand we're always brought up with like a very low key sort of take the piss, UK kind of humor as opposed to like the broad American humor, which is good, done really well. It's a lot more structured, I guess, but they do it really well. But like I used to love.
It's the same with Irish though, because we're very dry humor as well. We like
totally
a lot of improv.
It's a lot. A lot of unscripted kind of thing. I was actually going to ask you about your YouTube channel because I saw a skit up there, and it's called The Lost Genre of Fart Noir. And God, I had to ask, what the hell is that thing about, man? Come on.
I was just bored one day, and I was just thinking, I was laughing at farts one day, and I thought, yeah, and then I just looked up some old Philip Marlowe stuff, or all that kind of stuff, and I just thought I'd just drop some farts into something just for shits and giggles. Just it was really, I was just bored. It's pretty, it's pretty rude.
I was watching it and I was questioning my existence. Like, why did I come across this video?
Yeah, it's like he really had nothing else better to do that day, obviously. Yeah.
No, yeah, it was brilliant, man. Your YouTube man, really, really funny.
Oh, it's definitely a gem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did another one called Bill Kedder, and it was like this dude called Neil, and he thought he was right on the money, and that's all the funny characters where they always think that their moral compass is like, straight up, but it's actually skew with, and and that's a really good thing with if you ever play a villain or like a baddie, is that they never ever think that they are a villain. They never ever think that they're doing it. They always think they're 100% right, and that's the key to it, because you can't morally judge them. But for this guy, he was like a jingle writer, and he said, "Have you written jingles?" Yeah. And he had one called Bill Kedder, and he basically ripped off all these old commercials, and then he started doing sound likes of Metallica, and he really had no idea he couldn't do it. Anyway, I filmed that with a good mate of mine, Craig Hall, and he's a very well-known dramatic actor, but he was so funny because he just played the straight guy, and he got really, really upset, and I was sort of throwing curveballs at him. But anyway, that was, I should do more of that. I've just actually done one with Adam Brown, and I wrote it only a few weeks ago. I haven't written sketches for bloody ages, and he's based in the UK. He's based in Brighton. He played Ori, and he's very funny. He's a very good writer, and a very good comedic actor. And I just sent him the script, so he recorded it. Then I recorded my part here, and I'm just editing at the moment, which I'll release it hopefully in the next couple of weeks. It's called Gary the Murderer, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, that's the thing with comedy, like people. They dissect it and they analyze it. But to me, if you laugh, it's funny. If you don't laugh, it's not funny. It's pretty fucking simple, really. And it's so subjective. Like, something that makes me laugh might not make you laugh. And I think people overanalyze stuff, and it's like movie critics. It's like, fuck off. Just if you liked it, that's great. Don't try and look at everything that's wrong with it.
Yeah. No, we definitely disagree with people who overanalyze things. Yeah. We joke about English teachers a lot. Like,
we've talked about
door's
that,
blue
like, being like, the door is blue because it represents the character's emotions towards change or some shit like that. And we're just like, or door's blue because they had blue paint.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a place for that in certain things, but not in comedy. It's like, no, you just, if you get a belly laugh out of it, then brilliant. I mean, there was a great sketch I remember seeing. There's these Scottish guys, and there was like a documentary crew, and they were like amazed that you could get water out of a tap, and it was a complete piss tape about how people are, how he goes, oh, look, it's water, oh my God, come here, and they were just like, is the tap? He said, well, where'd it come from? The tap? He goes, no, that's amazing, and it was just that, because Scots are really, really, had that sarcastic streak, and I think New Zealand humor lends a lot from the Scots and the Irish too, I think. But yeah, it's pretty funny. And I think before I did my audition, we had to in Scottish, I borrowed a video from a friend of mine, and it was called Chewing the Fat, which is the Scottish show, and it was pretty funny. And I just love the language, and just some of the sayings, like there was this kid goes up to this like hot dog stall, and they do the butties, and she was like, what do you have, Pat? And he's like, hey, gives us what's your funny,
Jesus Christ.
And it's all that kind of very lowbrow Scottish humor. So yeah, anyway. I mean, Irish is the same. I grew up with Dave Allen, so I love all that kind of stuff.
No, I think Australian and New Zealand, Irish, English, we all kind of have the same, very dry, very kind of, we know what we kind of like. Like the other day now, I'm just thinking we had a thing like comic relief, but Irish people kind of do it, and Niall Horan came on, and he was singing a song, but it was being presented by an Irish presenter called Ray Darcy, and he used to do a show with this puppet called Dustin the Turkey, right?
It's a huge thing. It was hilarious, and people loved it so much. Dustin the Turkey, huge part of Irish culture. Brilliant.
He used to insult the shit out of you. You know, he's like, you know, he's one of those bastard old men. But like
he performed at the Eurovision. Old lady had worms.
Yeah, right.
Performed the Eurovision, and Niall Horan was singing it, and Justin the Turkey was like, "Well, you shut up, man. We wanted Harry Styles," and cuts him off. Now the American fans saw this, and they went absolutely ballistic, trying to cancel this turkey.
They tried to cancel the puppet.
They were like, no,
they don't understand it, and they don't understand the subtleties, which means you could really rip the piss out of them. I mean, I used to love, one of my favorite shows back in the day was Father Ted. You know, we used to
Ted.
Ted. Oh, I love being a priest. I saw Arlo Hanlon at in Edinburgh. Was it King's Hall in Edinburgh? Or was it Queen's Hall? At Edinburgh, and
he's hilarious.
He was so funny. I just like, and he was like, I'm trying to do the accent because I get judged. But he was basically, he said, you know, like Ryanair's got this new airfare, and it's like, it's just like a slingshot. He's like, £1, fuck off.
No, man, Father Ted and Fawlty Towers, man, they're like classic shows that just represent Irish and British humor really, really well, I think.
Yeah, and didn't some tool take off an episode of Fawlty Towers recently, and then they reinstated it on BBC?
Yeah, no, it's been reinstated now.
The connotations, because it's like, no, but the guy's a bigot. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Like, he is you're not glorifying it. The guy's a complete ass, and
his character is that he's a deranged lad who will never forget the war, never forget the past. And the same with It's the same with Basil in the episode with the Germans. He's like, he can't let go of the Germans being Germans and not them being these lads they fought in the war, and that's why he can never let go of that, and that's his entire thing.
And it's a representation of a certain type of person, you know, and we all have those, you know. I'm just trying to think, you know, if they took that off, I mean, you know, Alf Barnett, surely that they'll remove him from bloody, you know, this massive racist.
I'm surprised they haven't gone after yet is Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Where the kid's imaginary friend is literally Hitler.
Yeah, played by Maori.
They tried to go with
love Taika, man. He's so good.
Taika Waititi, fucking love that one.
What a guy. He's awesome.
I auditioned for one of his films. I auditioned for the original What We Do in the Shadows. I
love that movie.
Did the movie.
I love the
so
style
brilliant.
of that stuff.
I auditioned for one of the cops, and I saw him because we were filming at the time, and I saw him, I don't know, a few weeks after or something, or a few months after, and he said, "Oh, you know, they're doing this film," and blah, blah. I said, "Oh, yeah, I think I put a tape down for that." Yeah. And he just, you know, he had the awkward. He goes, "Yeah. Oh, well, you got a good job anyway," you know. So whether it was shit and he just didn't, it was just too polite to say, I don't know. But he's doing the next Thor movie, God and Thunder, here in Sydney, and that should be. They've got to finish Shang-Chi, which is the new Marvel martial arts movie, because that got stopped. So they'll finish that up at Fox Studios, because Fox Studios now, of course, is owned by Marvel and Disney. So it's going to be Marvel wall to wall. Then when they finish that, they're going to go straight into Thor. So I've got a mate of mine who I did a TV show with up in Queensland last year. He sort of does all the transport for it. So yeah, they're about to. I think he's back at work now.
Do you follow the MCU yourself?
What's that?
Do you follow the Marvel Cinematic Universe yourself?
Oh, look, yeah, like I've watched a few, and I actually went back on, you know, because there's been bugger all else to do lately. I went back and watched some of the Spider-Man movies. What was the first one? Homecoming.
Oh, Spider-Man with them.
A good one. Yeah.
Really liked it, and I loved all like the, yeah, like I loved all the second camera stuff, and I just forgot how funny Jon Favreau is, you know, just and all that real because him and Robert Downey Jr. got that real same laid back, very casual style. It's brilliant. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I mean Michael Keaton, he's like definitely made a comeback. Yeah, he just gets some great roles. So yeah, I've got into that. I saw, you know, seen all the, you know, saw Endgame and Infinity War and all kinds of stuff, and I don't think I saw all of the Captain America's, but I've gone back and watched a few of those. I don't think I've seen Ant-Man yet, but you know, you just got to read a few blogs. You get to read a few blogs, and you know kind of what happens.
Ragnarok, no?
Oh, I thought that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok is my favorite as well. Directed by
Devil's
Taika
Anus.
Waititi as well. That was it was such a departure from what Marvel usually does. Just because it was the first film that Taika Waititi directed, and absolutely loved it, man.
And it just showed how funny Chris Hemsworth can be, you know, because
Exactly.
they've never uncovered that before. And the scenes with him talking to Mark Ruffalo, you know, about being Thor and shit. I mean, it's just you know, and you can notice. I don't know if you've watched The Mandalorian, but there's a lot of Taika directed one of the episodes, and you can tell which one it is because it's the one with the two stormtroopers like on these sort of bikes having a little random chat. You know, just talking about, because that's what Kiwis like, just talking about just random shit, you know? Yeah.
It's realistic.
No, man, yeah, he's super cool dude, and his work is awesome. Like,
he's only a legend.
Incredible.
You gotta love him, man.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And the Hunt for the Wilder People is a very, very Kiwi movie. There's a lot in that that's very, I guess, in-house sort of Kiwi humor. There's a lot of they pulled a sequence basically shot for shot out of an old Toyota commercial in that whole thing. So I watched it with a whole lot of Kiwis, and we were laughing when no one else really didn't know what was going on. There's a lot of good stuff in that. That's a great movie. It's based on Barry
Julian Anderson. That's the young actor's name.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very good now. He was in Deadpool 2 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
What a
good.
guy.
No, he's off now. He's away, and you know that was the movie that did it for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've asked other actors. Are there any roles that you'd allowed to say that you applied for and then you didn't get? Like big ones.
Yeah, there was one like last year. I probably can't really say it because they're still filming it.
If you can't say it, don't. Yeah.
No, that's right. But I spent like an hour and a half with this really big Oscar-winning director, and basically missed out because I guess it was an age thing. Because the person who was meant to be older than me that I was, you know, going to be doing it with was about 10 years younger than me. So it didn't kind of work out. But you know, there's that kind of thing happens a lot. But it's, I guess, just to get that far and to know that you did a good enough job. I remember walking out of it going, "That's the best work I've ever done." We just workshopped a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, like there's that. But then again, you know, with The Hobbit, I'm sure that if Del Toro had have continued on, I might not have even got the role, you know. And I don't know how many people they might have offered it to before they offered it to me. You just don't know that kind of stuff. That's just the way it works out. And I think every actor's got stories of that, you know, stuff they turned down. The worst would be Sean Connery because he got offered like 20% of the net of Lord of the Rings and turned it down, thought it was stupid. So you know, to play Gandalf.
Oh wow.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Nice.
Whoops.
Jesus.
We had another actor on as well, and he said that he lost the role of Negan to the person who plays it now.
Steve Bastoni.
Yeah, Steve Bastoni.
Oh, right.
And he was just like, "Oh yeah, that fucking piece of shit." And then it's like, "No, I'm nothing against the actor, but it's just that I thought I did better than him."
Yeah, right. I know. Is that the Australian guy?
Yeah, that's the Australian guy.
Yeah.
Steve Bastoni. So he was oh wow. So he was going for Negan.
Yeah, he was in the Matrix before.
Then another actor, and then the person who actually got the role.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan got the role.
Yeah. Oh, he's brilliant though.
He's a really good actor, yeah.
I've gone off that. I sort of, I don't know, I haven't watched the recent series. I started, then I stopped, and then I started again, and I just got bored. But I went back to Fear the Walking Dead because I stopped that about towards the end of series 2, because you know it was okay. It was just felt a bit cheap, but the rest of it's been amazing. Like every season 3 and 4 has been really good. So I mean, I've been binge. A
lot of people say that Fear the Walking Dead is better than The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
I'd be one of those people.
It is now. It is now. Yeah, 100%. I think so. But I've seen heaps. Like The Crown really surprised me. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was done incredibly well. And even though you knew it, and it's all about the royal family, you thought it might be a bit naff, but the stories and some of the shit that happened was pretty amazing. And shot really well. I thought John Lithgow as Churchill was just incredible. And it was a different take on him, but he was amazing. And Get Shorty TV show is probably one of the best things I watched last year. That was amazing. And Better Call Saul, I think, is almost better than Breaking Bad. I mean, that's amazing.
Hold on now.
I love Better. No.
It's getting there.
Better Call Saul is, and I could agree with you in that it is so good. We had Charles Baker, who played Skinny Pete from Breaking Bad.
Oh, really?
We were talking to him. Yeah.
Great guy.
He's just a great dude. But
he gave actually like very motivational talk. He didn't even mean to. He just ended up doing it. Such a genuine, lovely guy.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be such a buzz on that.
Because you know how it's going to end, but they have this entire last season to get from A to B, and you just don't know how they're going to do it, man.
Yeah, and it sort of fills the gaps. And even I didn't mind El Camino because it sort of answered a few questions. Apart from Fat Jesse, I mean that was the only real, I actually stopped it. I stopped it and went back to the last episode of Breaking Bad, and I thought, man, he is really beefed up. You thought, man, just lose some fucking weight, dude. God.
No, I get you.
But it's hard because you just never know what other roles he's been playing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he might have to keep that way for another role. So, anywho, Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
Another good actor.
But I can agree with you. I love Better Call Saul, and I thought the last season that came out on Netflix there, it was really, really good. Had his Walter White moment kind of thing, and he's getting to becoming, the criminal lawyer kind of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's awesome.
Just to finish up, I think I have 2 more questions. So,
sure.
What made you want to become an actor, or how'd you get into it?
Oh, geez, I don't know. Maybe I remember when I was a kid, probably about 10, I started just doing stuff at the local theatre. I think I wanted to become a radio announcer, quite early on. I think an accountant maybe, but that was only for a few months. It was a stupid idea. Then I was a radio announcer, and then because of that, they said, you should go do speech lessons, So I did that. And then I got into some drama when I was 10, probably a bit earlier. And then I just did all the school productions, all the way through. And, I had it all going for me at school. I was, sort of overweight and ginger. So, it was all awesome. So you sort of have to try and find a way to get by, and I honestly think it was sort of kind of a survival mechanism because school's brutal. I've got a 9-year-old, and school is brutal.
School is horrible.
Yeah,
it's a horrible place.
Yeah, and I figured out I was good at it, and people laughed, So it was that was my sort of winning formula. It was my survival mechanism to get through. And then I discovered I was good at it. So I did get into radio when I was 18, and then I worked in radio till that was 1987. I worked in radio till about 96, 97, and then 98 I moved to Auckland. Still worked in radio, but I that's when I got my first agent, and just in Auckland just took off from there really. And then 2003 I've been separated from my wife for a couple of years, and a job came up in Sydney at Triple M, so I moved over here and thought I'd extend my acting career here. Got a voice agent, and they did some got a few little roles on Home and Away and shit like that, and then the Hobbit came along and got that through my New Zealand agent. Flew to New Zealand, didn't go through Australia because I knew I'd get hired as a Kiwi easier. And then after that, I got a new acting agent, Marquee, who are amazing, and they've just got me to another level now. So yeah, that's sort of how it all worked. Just kept going, really.
Fair play. Honestly, no, fair play. What you're saying with school there, school is a place where people are just going through a lot of stuff, a lot of pressure, and sometimes they feel they need to shit on other people. We didn't start this podcast until we were certain we were finished school. Just out of I love the people that were in my classes and all that, but there was definitely some people who, if they knew you were doing it and they knew they could get a reaction out of other people, they would rip the shit out of you.
Yeah, there was a few instances now like of people having like being content creators, and then people just bully the shit out of them for it. It was fucking horrible. Like,
there was once a lad in our school, and there's an intercom thing in our gym, and he started a YouTube channel, and what they did was they played his videos, which they're bullying him about it, and then in the first place, but then they played his video in the hall, full volume. Everyone's doing their PE, and our school's overcrowded, so like there was more than one class. There's probably like 2-3 classes doing PE at the same time. That's played over the intercom, and feel terrible for the guy still.
yeah.
Not fun.
No. I always like to think that there's a reason, that they're trying to make up for something in themselves, by sort of putting it onto someone else. It's hard at the time, though. But, and like it does give people a drive. It gives people a drive later on in life to try and succeed in that. But at the same time, I also think it's good to discover that that's what the drive was. So you don't have to, you don't have to try and, I mean, it gets a bit psychological, but, you see people who are really, really super overconfident. Sometimes it's masking the fact that they're not, and a lot of that comes from school. So I just say go do some personal development stuff, find out about what your life was about, find out what happened, get it sorted, and then move on. Because otherwise people never grow up. They just live in that sort of state their whole lives, which I don't think is healthy.
Not. Definitely not. And the last question, you said something earlier about with your Patreon. You want to do a podcast at some point. Have you done that, or are you planning on doing that? You have a nice setup for it, definitely.
Yeah, like I've done a couple. The one that's on my Patreon page is I did a whole lot called Actors Talk About Themselves. And it was a couple of people I knew as actors, but mainly the Hobbit cast. And it was just a video. We did them on YouTube initially, and it was a video just chat with some of my Hobbit mates. And then I turned them into podcasts. So I've got all those on there. And then I've got another podcast. I'm actually about to go on it like very shortly with a friend of mine that we started during the COVID period called Yeah, Nah, What, which is basically just chewing the fat about what's happening in the world at the moment. She's kind of spiritual, she's sort of, really doesn't like the control, and she's a bit anti-establishment. And I'm sort of a bit more like, unless they lop off a limb or throw me in the back of a black van, they can do the hell what they want. I'm sort of a little less conspiracy theorist. So we talk about shit there.
That's
on my Patreon,
good contrast, definitely.
Yeah, you got to have the balance. And I do another one on my Patreon page for like my VIP room patrons, which are like it's a sort of a certain tier. They pay like I don't know $5 a month. It's bugger all. And I do a special one for them once a month called There Was This One Time in Dwarf Camp, which is basically they ask questions, and it's like a Q&A you get at the conventions, and it goes for about 15-20 minutes. So yeah, I do that as well. Podcasts are so easy, just to. And I've got a recording booth here. I do audio books in here, and I do like animation auditions, and I've done voice jobs in here as well, especially over this time, looking up with studios. So yeah, to me it's a lot easier and takes a lot less to organise than filming.
Yeah, with podcasts they are really easy. We've been doing a podcast for 54 days in a row, I think.
Nice.
This is the second podcast we've done today, and we were also filming earlier. We've had a busy day.
Wow.
But no, like it's worth it. Like the people you get to talk to, like yourself, like we're not showing it very well because we're pretty tired. But like we're really like fangirling right now that you're on. We really appreciate that you got on today. And same with other actors we get on, or comedians, YouTubers, content creators of any kind. It's great to have these people on.
Yeah, well,
for some reason we keep picking like people in Australia.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're like,
half of it's just
person.
asking. Half of it's like, hey, you keen? I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I got time, and you just like usually check out their podcast and just make sure it's a real podcast, and make sure it's not like some sort of, white supremacist sort of wing or anything like that, and then you go, okay, no, you're good to go.
I actually get concerned when people just say like yes straight away, and they're like they haven't checked, because I've done podcasts before, like other people's ones, and you kind of worried like if you haven't checked already. It's like, okay, what's it going to be about? If it gets super political, I don't want to talk about that stuff. What do I do?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nah.
Anyway, if people want to check you out, they want to follow you on anything, how can they find you?
Well, I've got my Patreon page, which is Stephen Hunter Patreon, and then there's also the Actors Coach, if anyone's interested in acting. And the way I've set that up, kind of like I've done a fan page with my other Patreon with my Actors Coach, it's kind of like a subscription. People pay like $5, $10, $20. I do Q&As that I record like podcasts. I do live Zooms with people. I do a regular weekly blog. It's a bit of a resource for actors, you know, and it's a real sort of pretty, I think, cheap way of going about it, because I usually charge like $80 for a like an hourly thing, which is still pretty cheap. But yeah, so I do that, and on my Twitter and Instagram, it's Stephen J Hunter 1. And then Facebook, it's Stephen Hunter Actor. So it's all those things. And not on TikTok, because that's for 14-year-old girls.
Ah, sadly.
Yeah, no, we'll be finding you there anyway.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, I feel like some people are going to be very shocked that you don't look like the character in Lord of the Rings. Mia's beard isn't like that? What?
Yeah. He's not the size of a bus? No.
Bit of a letdown, man. I'm being honest. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, man,
No,
I
it
want
was
to
an
thank
honor
you so
having
much
you
for
on.
coming on.
Thank you so much
Awesome.
for your time.
No worries, guys. Anytime. Good luck to you. See you later.
You too, man.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Take it handy. Have a great day.
Bye.